Welcome to the YouTube channel, you guys. My name is Asan Rose. I'm an entertainer filmmaker just like you guys. And today we are going to be talking about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K and how to get cinematic, colorful images in your short films using DaVinci Resolve and the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K.
Hi. Look, I know I can be a little loose in the lips, but I do have your back. And your front. Basically, all of you. Your face isn't saying we're good.
It's not you, just a little creeped out. Douglas Helton, his birthday is the same as mine, August 27th. I don't know, thought that was a weird coincidence. It's Lucas. He wants to meet.
No, I don't want you seeing him.
Okay, but it's really not.
It's no buts. It's just gonna feed your paranoia.
It's not paranoia.
No, it's worse. Look, you went to Kurt's house alone. Look, don't you get it? Whoever killed him could have killed you too.
All right, first off, I want to talk about my setup just a little bit. I have the Blackmagic 4K with the small rig cage, the Tilton Nucleus follow focus, and then a couple different lenses. I have the Tamron 28 to 75, the non-stabilized version, and I also have the Viltrox speed booster, which is what I shot most of this stuff on. But actually, let me take you guys right into DaVinci Resolve and let's talk about how we color graded this. Now with DaVinci Resolve, I actually love to use nodes. I find nodes to be the best, most simplified way of color grading. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, but once you learn how to use nodes effectively, it really does up your color grading game because it allows you to really separate what levels of grades you're doing. Now you can see at the first video that we have here, it is actually her at the door. And now if you look at the top right over here, it's essentially like right in front of her, approximately right about this side of her. I have a big diffused reflector. It's a 43-inch reflector. You can look it up on Amazon, or 42-inch reflector. You can find it on Amazon actually. So they're pretty solid. But if you take away all of the color grade, you'll notice that it's definitely not as punchy, right? Or like you'll notice this is punchy, right? So this is the original and this is the graded version. Now, if you take it all away, you'll see how it looks. So now this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna start from the bottom and work our way up. The first thing I do is go to the Blackmagic Raw settings right here, and I go give it a solid base layer. You can see that I lowered the exposure, I lowered the tint, or maybe this was the exact way that it came in when I shot it. But I try to get my white balance right in camera if I can. But the good thing about Blackmagic Raw is if you don't, you can kind of play with it a little bit and you have that flexibility. But the first thing I usually do whenever I work with nodes is I pop a LUT on. So the very first LUT that I use from this is from Ground Control, and it's actually like a Rec 709 to, or Blackmagic to Rec 709 look. So essentially that's what gives me this first little base layer. You'll notice that it goes from regular to slightly punchy. Now I could theoretically make this a lot more punchy if I wanted, but what I do is I actually take it, I go to this key level right here, and I lower the key output. So that way it gives it just a little simple base layer. Even honestly 0.2 works, right? So now that's before and that's after. Second level, I go through and I call my second level my color level. So essentially what I mean by my color level is, this is where your style comes in. And whenever you're like, oh, I finally kind of figured out what color I want to go with, whether it's maybe a bit more of a green or a magenta or a teal or an orange or whatever the case is for you or your project. For this, I decided to go with a bit of a cinematic light teal and orange. So I pop this in, and it's essentially by Cameron Brown. He's another YouTuber. I found it online actually. So I pop it in, and I actually kept it at its maximum key rate, right? So it's actually at its highest. But then the next thing I do is I go through for curves. Boom. So the next curve that I did was my S curve, right? So you'll see that with it and without it, it becomes a lot more punchy, right? And that just brings those shadows down and it brings those highlights up. Okay. The fourth and last thing that I did to this image was take it and bring a little bit of that orange out, right? Because it makes it look a little bit too punchy and unnatural in there. But if you take that out, it looks great. And a little secret sauce that I add to all of my videos is a little tiny bit of a little tiny bit of sharpening to everything. Just the tiniest amount, right? And it adds just that little bit of extra punch to the image, okay? So you'll notice that right here, boom, this is where we're at. So this is how you take your image from very flat and non-cinematic, or a raw image, if you will, to a fully developed cinematic and punchy image. It helps to light it right. Again, so like I said, I used a big diffuse light overhead, so it really helped out. And I actually had a reflector underneath right here as well. So I had a reflector underneath pushing in a little bit of light. I had a big diffuse softbox right over the top. And I even had a small little bit of a kicker in there to separate her from the super dark background, which was inside. All right. And now when you get the reverse of this, you can actually see over him that this is the reflector and it's clamped in. It's clamped in right up at the top. So it actually helps out like a ton whenever you can just clamp something up or find a space to put it all in. Okay, once he opens the door, you'll notice how this slide is, set up as well. He's again, very well lit. It's a bit of a shadow and depth on this side, but it's also a bit flat and kind of flattering. But again, when you look at this image where without color grade, it's kind of flat, no color, but the color grade brings that out. So when you take this out, you see it, everything affects everything. But again, if we start from the base and work our way up, boom, here's your base layer, boom, there's your color layer, boom, there's your contrast layer, and boom, there's your essentially like an adjustment layer or kind of a color tweak layer, right? So that's what I call my last one. So you'll notice that it looks way better than before, right? So we'll go to our interior shots. And so this is kind of whenever she comes in the house and she's sitting on the counter. Now you'll notice, like, in comparison to the outside of the house, on the inside of the house, I went with a very dark, deeper, saturated image, whereas the outside, it was a little bit more flat and flattering and airy, and just to show the difference between the inside, which is like the world, and the outside, which has become her like place of like refuge. Um, Now, again, just like the other ones, you'll notice that in these nodes, boom, take it out, it looks very flat, not really much there. But boom, pop your first little base layer again. Similar, exactly the same thing as before, okay? I'll pop my base layer of the lead-in. Second thing, pop my, pop those in. Now you have your second layer, which is your color layer, and you'll notice that even those curtains right there start to have a little bit more color. Her hair has more color, and just overall the image has a bit more color to it, right? Third node that I do again is my contrast node, or a little bit of punch in there, and then the last one is that kind of color correction node. And maybe that's not the perfect place to show you, but you see it's very contrasty, and like I like the way that this image overall looks. Definitely one of my favorite of the shoot, just because I love the way that the light fills in on her face and brings that rim light on her. It's really interesting and compelling. So the next, and like you'll see when she stands up, it looks really, really cool. For this, I will say I had on this side of her, there's this practical light right here behind her. I had a light match tungsten on this side as well to push in a little extra light and soften up and give her a little hair light here. I also had this light right here. It was just diffused with the window itself. I pulled the blinds down to an appropriate level and set the lighting as to what I thought. I actually have them cross keyed here. It's kind of hard to tell based off of the way that this image is set up, but the Godox SL60 is actually on this side of the picture, and the other side is like it's a GVM, Greater Video Maker light, LED on this side, pushing in a little bit of that hair light. So that's why you'll notice that this fill is very soft because it's actually kind of cross keying. I'm using this light to key him, I'm using this light to key her, but it's a very soft, soft, soft key. And again, the reverse of this same thing, I use those lens flares for a bit of an effect because I did it on purpose. I didn't plan it, but once I saw them, I was like, all right, this works. But again, this is your flat image, and this is your not flat image. Like you'll notice, dude, it brings a lot of that out. So let's go ahead and disable all these. Base layer, boom, pull a little bit of it up, subtle but there, boom, color layer, boom, contrast layer, and then your subtle adjustments layer, if you will. So again, it's very subtle, but it brings a lot of that orange out. You can actually see it right in your hue versus saturation layer. So that's where you pull this out at. You notice you can push it all the way up if you want, but we're gonna pull a little bit of that out. And you can even see where that orange kind of spikes in there a little bit. So very interesting to pull that out and see the overall image. But yeah, so that's how I take an image looking from very flat to very like cinematic and punchy and just something a little bit better than what it was before. And again, I was using the Godox SL60 over here to give him a little light, a little bit of her light too. So, and then I was using just this window light to fill him. So it was very effective. It worked for what we needed. And it was really only just me there too. So I had no helping hand. It was just me doing pretty much this entire thing for this. So, again, you guys, it's not necessarily always about the gear that you have. It's not about, all this other stuff. Sometimes creating a cinematic image can simply be about just the way you light it, the way you shoot it, and the way you color it. So today, you guys, I really hope that you learned on how to use the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K even more effectively than you did before. I usually use a couple different ISO settings, just so you guys know. The first one is 400, the second one is 1000, the third one is 3200, because I find those to be the most advantageous. Those are the dual native ISOs, and then the 1000 is actually the highest dynamic range. You get the most out of the shadows and the most out of the highlights. So right now, currently I'm shooting at 1000 ISO because it kind of helps get this and then get that at the same time. But again, you guys, I really, really hope you learned a lot today. If you like this video and how I color graded the actual footage itself, let me know. I would love to hear your comments down below. If you would like to, just in terms of like learning more about color grading, let me know, and then we can boom pop into DaVinci Resolve and learn some more stuff. So again, thank you guys so much. I hope you learned a ton, and just remember, keep your color grades subtle, and really it can change your game and the way your short films look. So thank you guys so much, and remember, keep on shooting.